It was the most Star Trek thing I've ever watched that wasn't called Star Trek.
The child will be taken to Moklis, where she will undergo the corrective procedure.
Captain Vorak, I will not allow that child to be taken off the Orville without Bortus's consent.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Raiders of Lost Flicks. I am your host, Adam, a.k.a. the Groovinator of RaidersOfLostFlicks.com. Remember, if it's a bad movie, we want to know about it, and I'm here with my good buddy Phoenix West from Loitering in Wonderland Studios. We're here to talk about 103, About a Girl. Do you suppose they named that after a Nirvana song?
I don't know. When I saw that, I had an aneurysm. I wanted to drink some pennyroyal tea. Let's not do this. Okay.
We did this once on another show. It was a lot of fun. It was just an entire episode of Nirvana references.
To the point where I pulled up a list of all their songs and made sure
I think you hit everything at least twice. And it was a Twilight Zone review. But yeah, when I was thinking that, I'm like, damn it, I know he's going to do it. I know he's going to say.
Once I saw the title, I'm like, oh shit.
Uh-oh, here we go. About a Girl.
I'm not in the mood for it now. It's early, 12:30 here in the afternoon. My coffee's almost gone. No.
So this one deals with what I like about Star Trek, and actually most science fiction shows, is ethical dilemmas, okay? Differing opinions, different points of view, different cultures, different customs, and in this one, is set up nicely by the last episode. Lieutenant Commander Bortus lays an egg, literally. In this one, the egg hatches, and actually it hatches in the last episode. We forgot to mention that in the last review, but it hatches at the end. And the instead of having a boy, they come from an all male society. They have a girl. Okay, they have a girl baby, and in this one, the dilemma is they want to get a sex change immediately. Clyden and Bortus. And, of course, the doctor and Ed Mercer refused to do it because this is a healthy baby girl. Why would you do surgery on a baby that seems healthy, but by their culture, being a female is a handicap? How did you feel about this episode?
It was the most Star Trek thing I've ever watched that wasn't called Star Trek. It was, like you said, the ethical dilemmas. It was just flat out a Star Trek episode. And I couldn't separate it. I have been the other two episodes I could separate it, but this one I was just like, I had to keep reminding myself this is not Star Trek, because until they had the only joke I laughed at in this episode, I think, was because he talks to Ed Mercer and he's like, I don't want to do this. It's wrong. He's like, you talk about women like it's a handicap, and he goes, well, if you had a cleft palate or cleft lip, wouldn't you get that fixed? And he's like, yeah, but the worst you're going to get there is a lisp. But vagina's not going to make you do that, depending on how you use it. That was the only joke I actually...
A little smattering of humor,
yes,
just to relieve the tension just enough.
Yes.
Which is what Star Trek used to do. Like there would be like just a little bit of a joke between a couple characters that you would like, some characters that have a chemistry.
Yeah, that worked. But other than that, I really did enjoy this episode. It was fun. Not fun, but like it was fun to watch this society, because eventually they go down to Bortus's homeworld, and that part was cool. It was interesting. Very Star Trek.
I was gonna say this was the episode that made me want to get into Orville. Okay, like continue watching, because while I was watching, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, this is so Star Trek. It makes me miss Star Trek. Like I want to go back and watch Star Trek again. And the funny thing is I've been watching Star Trek ever since I discovered this show and watched all the episodes, because I realized how much I miss Star Trek. But yeah, this is the ethical dilemma. You get the courtroom scene. Some of Star Trek's best episodes are courtroom scenes.
Yeah, it's super easy to produce. It's cheap, and you get that because you're in a courtroom, so you're always going to have that back and forth dilemma about something. They're not going to just do he murdered, therefore he, or if they do it that cut and dry, that black and white, they're going to have someone's has their agenda, and that's why they're doing it, and they find out the agenda and reveal it in open court, and you get that intrigue there. And this was pretty cut and dry as far as trial goes.
You and I both love character-driven stuff.
Yes.
And what can be more character-driven than a courtroom drama? I mean, it's one of my favorite Star Trek movies, my absolute favorite, is The Wrath of Khan, which is essentially a submarine battleship movie in space. But I love it, okay? It's fantastic. My second favorite, though, absolute second favorite, The Undiscovered Country.
Klingon Empire has 50 years of life left to it.
To offer Klingons a safe haven within Federation space is suicide.
They're animals, Jim. They are dying.
Which is a courtroom drama.
Yeah.
About Klingons and amnesty, and I fucking love that movie. All right.
They think the Enterprise blew up the Klingon ship and killed David Warner, and they get arrested.
Yep.
That's the
He
movie.
gets sent to prison, and it's amazing, just the way the whole thing unravels. But yeah, so some of my favorite Star Trek episodes over the years have been court dramas. You know, somebody gets caught into a situation, somebody goes to a planet where something that they think is pretty harmless and meaningless winds up being a major crime based on their society. In this particular case, it's Clyden and Bortus 100% want to get their child turned into a male.
Yep.
And the crew spends most of the episode trying to talk them out of it, more or less trying to talk sense into them without just like lecturing him, right? You getting on a soapbox and talk down to him. So you got a pretty cool sequence where you got Bortus fighting Catan, and of course they're beating the shit out of each other because they're pretty much the strongest creatures on the ship. And she knocks him halfway across the ring. It's like, well, you know, I'm a girl, but I'm still strong, right? You know, and
That doesn't work.
But what does work on him, which I thought was really cool the way they handled it, Scott Grimes and Lamar show up with some beers. Like, hey, buddy, we're here. You're feeling kind of down, and we brought some beers. We're going to watch a movie. We're going to have a movie night. And the movie they decided to watch is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, original Rankin and Bass cartoon. And in particular, they're watching the scene where Santa is telling Rudolph with his big red nose, won't you guide my sleigh tonight, and all that. And Bortus, the shot is really good because they show the back of his head, then they kind of show his eyes kind of zoomed in on him. He's like really into it. And as it goes on, I'm like, this could be really cheesy, but they shoot it in such a way to where I'm like, this is working for me. Because like for him, this is the first time he's ever seen this, and this is really serious. And this is getting him to think that just because my child is different, my child could also be special, rather than deficient. And that's what convinces him. He literally watches. It works as a joke, but it also works in the sense that Rudolph is a different character that is showing, you know, having a difference cannot be a handicap. You know what I mean?
It's a little blip of optimism for me when I was watching this, because at first I was like, he's just like watching Rudolph's stone face, and I was like, he's not paying attention. And then I realized he was, and he learned, because he's like, this makes me realize things. And he's like, had we killed it at birth, we wouldn't have to worry about it. He's like, no, that's not the lesson. He's like, all right, yeah, well, maybe if, you know, she can become something great. But the reason it was a blip of optimism for me is because it was jokes and character development in the same scene, and it worked.
They managed to make it work.
They can do it. Okay.
They finally got the formula right. They finally figured it out. Yeah, this is definitely the first one. So then the rest of the episode becomes the dilemma: should we or won't they? And then of course Clyden is opposed to. Clyden definitely wants to have the sex change. Bortus decides, I don't want to have the sex change. So then it becomes everybody gets involved. The entire Mocklin, that's what they call the Klingon knockoffs on the show. They're Mocklins, okay? But
I'm amazed they're not Klingates. We're the Klingates. Oh.
But yeah, they literally get involved. So they have to go to Mocklin and have a trial. And the trial is to determine whether or not the child should have a sex change. You know, and
is not a life-altering scenario.
And a life-altering scenario would be unfair to the child.
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I keep going back and forth on this issue. Because I keep saying it from everyone's sides, and everyone has a valid point, honestly.
That's the best Star Trek there is, though. When you can see things from everybody's point of view, and it's not. This is entertainment, not forcing you to take a side, not lecturing you, saying this is how it has to be.
It's responses dictated by an elaborate software written by a man. It's hardware built by a man. And now a man will shut it off. Pinocchio is broken.
It's saying, what if, like Bortus said, What if your child was born with a cleft palate? You know, you would get that fixed, right? In my society, this is the same thing as that. Trying to get somebody to see that. We've seen that. Some of the best Star Treks are where something might seem ethical to you, but to somebody else, they were not raised that way. They did not. It goes against their belief system. Some of the absolute best stuff.
Yeah, and ultimately, I guess the decision should come down to what's best for the child. And in this society, she's going to be ostracized. She has to go live in a fucking cave, we find out. But it doesn't mean there's no value to that life. So it really is, it really is a tough decision that the parents are going to have to make. And
let's go back to first of all, Bortus hires Kelly to be his lawyer, which I thought was great. Because first, I said MacFarlane, I would like you to be my lawyer. And surprisingly, he says, no, I don't want to do it. But Kelly had a year of law school. Have her do it, you know. And this was great character development for Kelly as well. Like I started to like her more a little bit after this.
She didn't really get to do a whole lot, honestly. She said some things in trial, but she didn't really get to do a whole lot.
It still gave her a chance to. I feel like it gave her a chance to be a little bit more front and center. Push Seth MacFarlane back. The guy's been front and center long enough. You know what I mean? It's like they also. Did you notice they had that little video game segment there too, where they're doing the Western, and I'm like. Is this a million ways to die in the West? Is this your way of getting that into this show? Because it's not going to happen. Yeah.
I was also thinking of Cowboy Wharf.
Cowboy Wharf.
Thankfully, figure.
It's only like a minute, thank God. But Bortus barges in. He's like, "Hey, I'm in the middle of the game here," and then all of a sudden, like the bandito guy on the roof starts going into a dance move. You know, it was
Scott Grimes' character changed it, so they don't do the duel. He does a dance off instead.
They're gonna do a dance off. He's like, I'm changing it up a little bit. I'm trying new things, you know. So
I didn't laugh only because it went on for 5 minutes. How he's explaining how he's gonna dance, and I'm like, I get it. It's different. Okay, can we move the fuck on?
That's awkward humor though, man. That's the way they always do it. It's like it's not really a funny joke, but if I let this run on long enough and we show facial reactions for the next 2 or 3 minutes, somebody will laugh because they don't know what else to do. So, that's funny.
It's a new beard.
It's my blip beard, because I grew it in the blip.
No, that didn't work. There's not a lot of jokes in this episode. It was serious, and that's why I liked it the most.
That's why I was excited for you to watch this one, because from this point on, this is what you're going to get from the show. Good. Okay, yeah, it even gets better than this. Like this is a good one. I liked this episode. It gets even better than this. But going back to the trial that finally takes place, the trial is exactly like one of those Klingon trials where they have the gavel.
Tribunal begins.
I think in the TV show they used to have like a big gauntlet, and they'd...
Advocate, haven't you informed the prisoner of the rules of this tribunal?
Beat the thing down. It's like a big orb. In this one, it's a square. Catan at one point turns it into an orb because Kelly's trying to prove that just because somebody's female doesn't mean that they're deficient in any way, because that's the argument by this society, is that they'll be disadvantaged if they're a female in an all-male society.
I like that scene. She makes it completely smooth ball into a completely smooth ball, and she hands it back to him, and then the judge takes it back, and he's like, sets it down. He's like, he doesn't know what to do with it because it's not a square, it's not a cube.
The lawyer's like, well, that's not fair. She's I forgot what the species name was. So they're stronger because they live in
higher gravity. Yeah,
that doesn't work, but it's still a nice touch. I mean, you know, she's trying, you know, to sway this, and surprisingly, things don't really turn out the way you think they're going to, and I kind of appreciated this episode doing that as well. Most Star Treks, especially Voyager, always ended on a good positive note, you know.
Usually in Next Generation, Picard talks people into reason, seeing things his way, and this way in this show it just goes, yeah, we hear you. They even brought in that girl from the cave.
What is this?
Well, look at that.
She's the most popular author on the planet.
Yeah.
is actually, and I know that was a nod to DC Fontana. I was picking up on that, right? You know who DC Fontana? DC Fontana wrote most of the original series best stuff. My gosh, and her name was DC Fontana because at the time in the '60s they didn't want to the audience to know that was a female writing the Star Trek episodes.
Oh, good old '60s.
Good old '60s. Yep.
Yeah, they reveal that she's the writer, and they still go, "Wow, no way!" And all right, we'll have our decision in 12 hours. And they come back and like, yeah, fuck that bitch. Cut that child up.
It is the decision of this tribunal that the child will receive the corrective alteration.
And at that point, it doesn't really matter because that's not what it's not really what the episode's about. It's about getting to know our characters better.
Yeah.
It's not one of those episodes where they impose their logic and Mercer shows us everyone logic and everyone goes, oh, okay, this society's not moving.
No,
it's literally a rock. And
we got to know a little bit about their society too. They're the military industrial complex. They build weapons. That's their chief export is they make guns and stuff. And I know that's going to come back later. Like they're setting things up. And and I'm going to use it as a shameless plug right now. Right now I'm watching a wonderful show called Babylon 5, which I confess I did not watch it when it came out in the 90s because I would have been about 19 when this came out, and science fiction on TV was the furthest thing from my mind during that age. So I'm watching it now, and I'm enjoying it because it's giving me a lot of those things that I like about Star Trek. Ethical dilemmas, setups and payoffs, overarching arcs that people have, like, you know, storylines that kind of overlap and pay off later. A lot of setup and payoff. They're starting to do that with the Orville now. You're starting to tell you a little bit about stuff. Like each episode will have its own story, but then there's also side stories going on in the background as well.
And that's exactly why episode 2 should not have been there, because it didn't advance anything, and it felt like a filler episode, which are some of the best episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, the filler ones. Where it's just we don't have much
tribbles.
Yeah, let's sit here
mirror
have a conversation. But it just felt like this should have been episode 2, or just swap them or move 3 down the line. But I liked the debate. I really did enjoy it, and because I kept finding myself going, oh, well, is it at this point? There's no winning.
He's got a point. Yeah, she's got a point too. Damn it. Yeah.
There's not going to be a compromise in this situation.
No.
You're not going to shave off half the genitals. You're not. You know what I mean? You got to choose one way or the other, and either way, it's a bad outcome.
For somebody. It's a bad outcome for somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At one point, it was even okay. Well, I don't see how the differently. And Bortus is like, well, Clyden still doesn't think that, you know, I should be allowed to have my child stay a female. And he's like, so you're going to stay with him? He's like, he's my mate. I got to learn how to live with him. You know, it's like, I love him, you know? So,
and I'm glad they didn't go, all right, go fuck yourself. I'm leaving you. Because that's something they could do later. They can have their relationship argument. They're breaking up later. They push that. Basically, you want to push as much as you can down the road while still having a satisfying ending. And this worked. Because I like you said, I like this speech about, I got to live with him. He's my mate. I love him. Like, I don't agree with him on this, but I love him. And it didn't feel like they didn't wrap it up. It still felt like an ending.
Yeah.
I think the only good compromise they could really have is keep her female and then don't have her live on their planet.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like the best, because
raise her aboard the Orville.
Yeah, she's on the Orville. She's on a starship. Just leave her there. She doesn't have to worry about any of the shit. She'll never encounter being ostracized on the ship.
I think, don't get me wrong, but I think the reason that they didn't do that was because the Mocklin was part of the Planetary Union. So I mean, I guess she's governed by their laws. But I agree with you though. Yeah, I wish that it would have turned out differently, but I don't dislike the ending at all, because it's like that. The fact that happened lets you know that stuff like that happens all the time. You know what I mean? Like in a realistic society, that is how it would end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the fact that a show that first advertised itself as a comedy is willing to go that extra mile and show you, like, well, this is how it really would end.
Yeah.
Like, there would not be a compromise here. It's got to go one way or the other. The ultimate nice touch is at the very last shot. He's got the little, here's your baby boy, gives the baby boy a stuffed Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer animal. That touched me. I felt something there.
It worked. It
got me right in the feels. Comedy got me right in the feels, Phoenix. What the hell?
Yeah. I would say even this episode felt a little too early for me. But the way they did it, they didn't just touch on his character through 5 or 6 episodes. They just focused on his character. That's why it worked by the time you get to the end. The last episode, not so much. But they do those little touchstones where you see, and even he changes early, like halfway through the episode. And then he starts to fight for her being female. Mm-hmm. And now I know a lot about that character, and I realize he's willing to listen to reason, or he's not like the rest of his society.
It's like he has a tough exterior, but he has a soft interior, and you just see just a little bit of that at times. It's kind of like the stuff they used to do with Worf back.
I was just gonna say that he's this show's Worf. Clearly,
100%. Yeah, that's the Worf character. But I enjoyed this one a lot. Damn,
I know where I'm going with a score.
You know what? You go first. Yeah,
it's easy for me because I gave it an 8 on mine, so 4.
You're a 4.
Yeah, this is a 4 for me.
This is a 4 for you. I think I'm going to go 5, just because, as you said, this one was so Star Trek that I forgot I was watching the Orville. I thought I was watching Star Trek. If it wasn't for a couple little jokes, which in this one they used the jokes as transitional material rather than just going out of their way to set up a joke and have it drag on too long. It's like this in between scenes. There's a little bit of stuff with jokes. Like there's that one spot where Grimes is trying to fly towards the planet, and there's like stuff blowing up on the background. He's like, yeah, he's talking to Mission Control. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna need a fresh pair of pants, Yeah. And the person on the radio is like, I'll have one fresh pair of pants waiting for you. And then Kelly's like, he was kidding. He's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
Just enough. It ends right there. I mean, just it's funny. Stop. Move on.
I thought that went on a little too long. I didn't need the follow-up zinger, but that was just me. But if it worked for you, great. The ones that didn't work was I promise we talked about this on this episode is Norm Macdonald as the boss.
Okay. Norm Macdonald and the doctor.
He goes into the doctor and he's like, I got a cough. She's like, you don't have lungs. She's like, I know what this is about. He's like, let's go on one day. Come on. If you don't have fun, I won't bother you again. And she's basically like, no, fuck off. And then it ends. But it was like a 5-minute scene for no reason. It just kept going.
It's to get more Norm Macdonald into the episode, because isn't Norm Macdonald like big friends with Seth MacFarlane or something like that?
Well, that's what's weird is, which order did it go? So I think Norm Macdonald was the original voice of Death on Family Guy, and then Adam Carolla took over. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then Norm Macdonald came. That's right, he was Death.
He was for like the first season or maybe 2, but so I don't know what happened with that relationship, but apparently they're still buddies because he's on the show.
I have a confession. I'm a huge Norm Macdonald fan.
Yeah.
I loved him on SNL. I own the movie Dirty Work. I think
Dirty
it's
Work,
underrated classic.
So underrated.
You fellas have a lot of growing up to do, I'll tell you that. Ridiculous.
A fucking underrated classic. I watch that movie all the time.
It's
and I like
Jack
his stand-up
Gordon
shit. His stand-up shit's great too. Yeah. He's so dry. He's the perfect amount of just dry almost to the point to where it's so miserable it's funny.
Yeah.
Like I love that kind of humor. I'm glad that he's on the show. But yeah, he is definitely, when he in scenes where there is Norm Macdonald, it is 100% comic relief. There's a certain part where he says, she says something like, our species isn't even compatible, and then he shoots out like a little tentacle that clearly is supposed to look like a penis, as much as network TV can allow. He's like, what about that? Well, a little bit more of that. There's plenty of that where that came from.
Eventually she kicks him out. And
I do like the fact that he does look like a gummy bear that's rolled underneath of a couch. He's always got like shit sticking to him and stuff.
Yeah.
If you look at it on HD, you can tell he just like kind of rolls around on the carpet all day long.
He's like a sentient Roomba. That's why we keep him here. We have to pick up.
He just cleans up the floor.
Yeah.
Actually, you haven't seen much of the show yet, but he actually does have a role on the ship. Like, he's a regular crew member. He's not just like he's not the Neelix of the show. You know what I mean?
If you like Norm Macdonald, watch. It's a show I wouldn't recommend, but I think you'll have the right sense of humor for it. It's Mike Tyson Mysteries.
Oh, okay.
It's his cartoon show. He plays the voice of a pigeon. And
I remember that being advertised, and I was morbidly curious about it.
It's just Norm Macdonald being Norm Macdonald, saying whatever he wants, and he makes it funny. And that shows, it's like kind of like Space Ghost, where it's a weird sense of humor.
His best shit is when you take his filter off. When you take off the Norm Macdonald filter and you just let him go full Norm Macdonald, great stuff.
The man's a lunatic.
He is.
He's 60 and he still doesn't know how to drive. He won't drive.
Fucking certifiable. Yeah.
The man's straight up crazy. But I love him, and this episode makes me look forward to the rest of the episodes because it's definitely really good.
So far, you're having all the same experiences that I've been having, which makes me happy because this is one of those shows that I wanted to review this on my channel because I want more people to give it a chance. I don't think a super amount of viewership increasing on the upcoming season 3 is going to be necessarily enough to renew the season, but that doesn't mean that shows like this can't come back later in a different format. We've seen that done before. I mean, fucking Firefly got a movie like a couple of years after it wrapped up, so I mean, things are popular. Well, Firefly had Serenity, the movie Serenity came out way after the
I've never watched Firefly.
You probably won't like it if you're not into Joss Whedon.
Yeah, I had a friend buy it for me. I got the whole box set out there. I mean, it's just a little,
It's good, but you also know that that's as far as it ever went. And then you watch it like, oh, I could have handled some more of that. It's good stuff. But yeah, that's kind of what's happening with the Orville. It's not. I mean, 3 seasons isn't like completely unsuccessful for a science fiction show. I mean, the original series was only 3 seasons long. So Then you got the Next Generation, which was like 7 seasons, and then DS9 was 7 seasons, and Voyager was 7 seasons, and even Enterprise was 4 seasons, which I think was maybe a season too long, but that's just my opinion.
And then you got Star Trek Discovery, which is 3 seasons too long.
That's what I wanted to talk about. You've watched Discovery, now you've watched The Orville. Which one of these shows is closer to Star Trek?
I watched the first 2 seasons of Discovery. I have not watched season 3 because I don't know if I'm going to watch season 3 at all. I don't know if I want to.
You're not interested in continuing. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to keep going down that deep dark well of sadness and moping. That there's episodes of that show when they do the one-off. It's very rare. There's only a couple, but those are pretty solid. And they look beautiful. The CG is beautiful, but they are more focused on the Star Wars than Star Trek. They want to have
the pew pew laser shit. Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? And I don't want to be sad when I'm. Same reason I watch Black Mirror. I don't want to be bummed out after watching an episode of something. I want to, if I am bummed out, the next episode better pick me the fuck up. Like it better make me want to watch.
It's almost like with Star Trek. It's okay to go dark as long as you go somewhere with it. As long as you take somebody on a trip. If you're going dark just for the sake of being dark, just to get people to cry, like I said, I got more emotion from them handing that stuffed animal to that baby.
Yes, the 1 second shot.
That 1 second shot. It was just It was the perfect fucking cherry on this fucking Sunday that is about a girl. I did. I liked this episode a lot. I think you'll enjoy what's coming later too. It goes up from here is what I'm saying. So
I would like Discovery more if it was episodic, but the problem is it's a season long story, so that mope and that sadness has to ride all the way through. So you end up with a whole season of a show that just makes you miserable. Like this show and other Star Trek shows can have a sad episode or a mopey episode, and then the next one is about something else.
Right.
And you don't have to sit there and just absorb this misery. It's a palate cleanser, and this is Star Trek Discovery. There's no palate cleansing at all until you cancel CBS All Access is your only palate.
Now known as Paramount Plus.
Not yet. I think they got till June.
They're not really doing good with their platform, are they? So many failures now. Discovery, Picard, Twilight Zone with Jordan Peele. Is there anything left at this point? I mean, they've destroyed all of their science fiction. I don't think they have anything left to do.
I'm trying to think. I assume Paramount's going to keep going with Star Trek because it's people watch it, but
everybody's already moved off and they're watching The Mandalorian now. So
yeah, but I think that's why they're going to keep it going. They're going to go, we got to compete with them, and we'll make it different, make our show different. Hopefully they change their show and not just go, let's go mopier. There's no moping in Mandalorian. Let's make ours the mopiest emo show you could ever watch and cry to.
Well, that's just it, Phoenix. When I finished watching the very last episode of season 2 of The Orville, I immediately I had to go watch some Star Trek that I hadn't seen before. I wanted to go back and watch all the episodes that I hadn't seen, and I was happy to find that there was a lot of them that I hadn't seen that I really enjoyed. And I'm getting the same feeling from Babylon 5. Episodic, ethical dilemmas, story arcs that continue out in different episodes. I'm getting all that. You get all that from the Orville too. I'm happy to say. So
I guess my closing thoughts would be for this episode so far, for the 3 I've watched. I watched this show and it makes me have fond memories of Star Trek. Be it whatever, mostly Next Generation because that's clearly what he's going off. But it makes me go, oh yeah, Star Trek. That was fun. I love that show. But I'm not going, I wish I was watching that. When I watched Discovery, they're even throwing in Christopher Pike and they got Spock in season 2.
They're just throwing anything against the wall to see what'll stick, huh?
And I'm going, I'm not even thinking of their characters from the other shows, from Star Trek shows. I'm not even thinking, I'm going, this guy's mopey as fuck and he's whining. Oh yeah, he's from Star... And I sit down and I'm like, oh God, end. So that's a good sign for this show, that it makes me think of a different show. But the one that is labeled Star Trek doesn't make me think about Star Trek.
And that's the big debate. The big debate is that the Orville is more Star Trek than actual Star Trek.
Yeah. And Picard, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't even think about Picard.
How many of those did you watch before you fell off the bus?
8 out of 10.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, you were committed.
I was like, this is going to go somewhere. This is going to go. And then I watched Red Letter Media's wrap up of the last 2 episodes.
So did I. I didn't watch a single episode. Red Letter Media was enough to let me know, no, it's not for me.
There's there's like half an episode here or there where you're like, oh, this is interesting. Oh, now it's mopey and stupid. And that show was like they're shooting guns and kidnapping people. I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? Oh, it's awful.
Let me ask you this. Is it trying to be more Walking Dead or is it trying to be more Game of Thrones?
No. It's trying to be, I don't know what, I really don't know how to classify that show because it's about nothing. It seems to be a show that they created to make you actively hate a character you loved growing up. That's what it seems like to me. Like,
it's not fair, is it? Yeah.
If that's the case, job well done. Because
the refreshing thing about something like the Orville is you have all these characters that are brand new. You can do anything with them. If you want to have representation, you can make the character something that you want them to be without changing them halfway through the ball game in order to appease a certain demographic or a certain audience. You know what I mean? Like I think this show, especially with this episode that we just watched, handles hot button topics way better than most shows do. Because Star Trek was always doing that. They handled politics way better because they didn't make you choose a side. They would show you something from 2 different points of view, which is what I want.
Yes, and it keeps you interested in the story, but in the end, it's just about the character's growth.
Right.
Star Trek's always been a character show.
How they grew from that. It's like that was one thing I liked about Enterprise. Even though I can't stand Scott Bakula, I liked his character because at first you see him as this charismatic space explorer, and then he goes through all this shit, and he goes through a period where he becomes salty and disengaged and having PTSD and shit like that. But he rebounds from it eventually, but it's not an easy journey. You go on, you watch a character develop. That's one of the things that always pissed me off about Walking Dead is they wouldn't have arcs, they would have circles. Like they would just kind of go in circles, and I was like, No, that's not the way this is supposed to be.
I can't watch another 5 episodes about how Morgan doesn't want to kill zombies and people.
They're still doing that?
Oh, he's on Fear the Walking Dead now.
I fell off about 3 or 4 seasons ago, so I didn't know he was still doing that. That tells me everything I need to know. Yeah.
You know they're on a stinking ship over at AMC when they have to distribute their cast to different shows. Like Maggie went over to that new World Beyond show. And then Morgan went over to Fear the Walking Dead, and then Rick is going to be in the movies. So they're all like venturing out on these different platforms and shows and stuff. And it's just like, just call it a day. Just let that.
It's like they got one boat of gravy that seemed to be pretty popular, and they're trying to find so many ways they can dilute that one bowl of gravy into 50,000 bowls of gravy so that they can make more money.
Yes.
It's so fucking sad.
I picture ships that are like about like just ducking out of the water, and Scott, what's his name? Rick is just like hops over to the other one so that one can go up a little bit, and this one's kind of like, all right, what do we do here? And they're like, throw Maggie over there, that ship, and they're trying to distribute all of these. And it's just, they're all going to go down in like 2 years.
Meanwhile, you got Mopey Star Trek over here by Alex Kurtzman, and then Seth MacFarlane's like, I remember Star Trek. Can I do it? All right, fine. Fuck you. I'll make my own Star Trek, and it'll be so Star Trek that people literally won't even realize that they're not watching Star Trek.
Yeah. What else can we say about this episode? It's really good.
It's really good. Check it out.
Yeah.
Make sure you watch it. Coming back to Hulu. It's on Hulu now. You can buy it on Vudu. I've seen it on Blu-rays and shit like that, but it's a Hulu exclusive. It's a wonderful show. Check it out if you're fans of Star Trek. If you just like good science fiction in general, definitely check it out. Phoenix, thanks for joining us. Where can everybody find you, sir?
I'm thinking about buying the Blu-ray actually. Now that I'm getting into it. LIWstudios.com, LIW the TZ Review on Twitter, Phoenix West on Twitter, and Tuesday nights Twilight Zone reviews on Lord of Wonderland on YouTube. Wednesday we do an anthology show and a John Carpenter movie.
Yeah, you never know when something funny is going to happen on this show.
Did something funny happen?
Yeah.
You'd never know it.